welcome to another edition of the Tom Sawyer Show here on the Warrior Sports Network. I'm Cory Prudoehl, joined as always by the head football coach at Winona State, Tom Sawyer. Coach, 2-0 start to the season, big home opening win over the University of Mary last week. How'd you think your team did, and what was it like to be playing at home for the first time this year?
Well, it's always great to play at Maxwell Field. I mean, we love being at home, and we had a special celebration, prior to the game with the Sean Afro family was here and celebrated his life and his time here as a Warrior, and so I really thought that Winona State really shined bright that day, and I thought that was something special. But playing at football at Winona, going through the tailgaters, walking the team down, and then coming out on the field and really playing well is something you always hope for, and kids remember that forever.
2 weeks, two Offensive Player of the Week awards. Josh Mikas won it last week. This time it was Jack Nelson's turn to win the award. He had a great performance, but what does it say about the team to be able to get 2 Offensive Player of the Week awards in a row in such a great offensive league already? Well,
it's really difficult. I mean, that's 16 quarterbacks and it's probably 50 wide receivers to choose from. So you start looking at that, and it's quite remarkable. Of course, their numbers were very good, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Jack was scrambling around." At the end of the day, he threw 422 yards of offense and 300 in the first half.
Yeah.
And so he really was remarkable. But that's a great honor for those two guys, and to represent Winona State football. It's been great.
You mentioned all the yardage numbers that Jack put up. One thing that was neat is that he spreaded the ball around pretty well too. 5 different receivers caught passes. All of them caught at least 50 yards. So it wasn't just 224 put up by Mikas like week 1. So talk about your pass catchers a little bit and what allows them to all be so successful with Jack throwing it to them.
Well, I think not only Josh Mikas that pretty much everybody knows about, and Alan May, he played a lot last year, of course, but also Dylan Alferts has really stepped up. He redshirted for us last year, and now he came out this year, and he's been fantastic. And Cameron Johnson hasn't even played yet, so we got one of our top receivers even on the field yet. Another kid, Justin Bergeron, came in and scored his first touchdown, went up over the top of a kid, kept his balance, shook the kid off, and got in the end zone. So very, very skilled at the wide receiver position. And when you start throwing around at 50 yards or more per kid, I mean, that's a lot. And we have that big play ability. We still need to continue to work on our balance on our offense, but explosive plays offensively by our pass catchers and of course our quarterback really has been fun to watch.
The running game seemed to struggle a little bit to get going early on in the game. Theo played well but didn't quite rack up the yards. But then in the second half, Paul Preston really came in and set the tone for the offense and kind of helped ice the game a little bit. So what does it mean to have a guy like him to be able to come in the game later on and really make an impact?
Well, I think it's huge. Theo had a big week the first week, his first week back, and they loaded the box up. They were run blitzing us a bunch, so there was a lot of people, and then that's why we threw it for 300 in the first half. But really, Theo was the mainstay. He's the physical one. He was doing a lot of blocking for Jack, but we did need a spark, and a spark comes from Paul Preston. We have other backs that can do it as well, but Paul came in and made a couple people miss. He's exciting every time he touches the football. Big things can happen, and he proved it again. He had a run for 26, then one for 16, and whatever. He almost went to 100 yards in really about a quarter's worth of work. So very explosive young man. He's very diligent about his work, and he's really exciting and fun to watch.
And he's 5'4" like me, so obviously he's my favorite player.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure he's 5'4". That's with cleats on concrete, but but we'll give him that. If he's 5'4", I'm 6'1", so between the three of us, we're doing pretty well.
Sounds good. And switching over to the defensive side of the ball, really thought they played pretty well for the most part. Morgan Weaver, Larry Bayou both played really well. You may look at the scoreboard and see, they put up 34 points, but a lot of those really weren't because of the defense at all. So talk about how the defense played.
No, the defense has really, really improved. Not only from game 1 to game 2, but I think overall in our depth is very good. The front 7 has been fantastic. Really the 6 or 7 guys that rotate in that defensive line, all playing about the same, very consistent and very fast. Which obviously, when you have that kind of depth, you're going to play a little quicker. Linebacker, that's where our strength is. That's where we have the most guys returning, and led by Morgan Weaver and Ryan Gertz. Those guys were very, very good. And then secondary, Larry Mabayu just dominated the football game in the secondary. I didn't throw it to his way hardly at all. He came up and shook off blocks and made tackles for losses, and he was fantastic. So right now they're playing at a high level. They're playing fast, and looking forward to watch their continued growth.
All right, great start to the season, 2-0. We'll talk later about the upcoming game at Minnesota-Crookston, but when we come back, we'll talk to a person we talked about just a little bit ago, Paul Preston.
And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show. Our first guest today is Paul Preston. Paul, thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we're on the road again this week and going into Game 3. Talk briefly about what's it like going on the road with the Warriors?
I would say it's a fun experience. This trip to Crookston is going to be a little longer, 7, 8 hours, so gives you a little more time to get focused on the bus. That's what I use it for, at least. I get myself focused. I think about what's going to happen during the game, and other than that, I just have a fun time with the guys on the way up.
It's a time to, we only get to bring 55 guys, and that running back group that you're a part of, how difficult a decision is that for the head coach who's got to make a decision on which running backs get to go on the trip?
I would say it's very difficult. We have a lot of guys that have a lot of potential and can do great things, so I would say that's a very tough decision that you have to make, and sometimes I don't know how you do it.
Well, it's easy because I just ask Cam and see what he thinks. But no, more importantly, here we are going into Game 3. Assess the offense right now from your perspective, Paul.
I think the offense is doing well so far. You have Jack Nelson throwing the football all over the place, which is awesome to see, and young kids like Justin Bergeron stepping up this past game. Other than that, the running game is doing pretty well. We struggled a little bit this past game against Mary, but we got things going, and I think it's doing good overall. So.
You came into the game and you really sparked the Warrior offense, and it really created a lot of momentum for the Warriors, especially in the second half. What was your thought pattern? Theo was out there pass blocking for a lot of it, and then all of a sudden you come in the game and get it rolling. Take me through that, would you?
Well, whenever I get in the game, I know that I have to try and do something. The offense was kind of running stagnant for a little while, so I knew that once I got in the game, I had to do something, be a playmaker, make a play. And I feel like I did that, and it got the whole team fired up. And we had that one series where we drove all the way down the field, and Jack Nelson scored on the quarterback sneak. And the next series on defense, you see Andrew Spencer getting a pick 6. So I think I really fired up the team, and then Andrew Spencer even continued that. So it was just awesome.
Now, the reason Jack Nelson scored the touchdown from about 6 inches out is because somebody was carrying the ball and didn't quite get in. Now, 2 games, once last year against St. Cloud. You're taking a lot of heat over this, but are you getting hungry to get in the end zone yet?
Yeah, it's killing me. It's killing me. I've gotten so close to the inch line now, but I just got to be patient. I know if I keep working hard, it will come. So.
Your whole career, going back to high school at Maine South down in Chicagoland area, and now here at Winona State, people have always said, well, Paul Preston's too small to play football. He's this, that, he's that. How has that been a motivator for you? And then when people come and watch you live, you get the wow effect. But how has that been for you growing up, Paul?
It just makes me work that much harder in the weight room, on the field, even in class, because, when you have your doubters, it really just makes you want to prove them wrong and succeed. So.
And the last thing to talk about, being part of the Warriors program, you're also part of the special teams. And, we took a lot of heat kind of in that first week. We didn't play so well on special teams. Now, except for the punt return, everything else was pretty good, and you're part of that kickoff return. But how has our special teams improved this last week?
Coach Barton really coached everyone up pretty well this past week, so I think we're all ready to roll. And our kick return team, I feel like, has been one of the better special teams so far. And I think we've had a good showing in pretty much both games. Me and Swinford have both had a nice couple of returns, so we just got to keep that going.
And the last thing I want to ask you about is something new in our program this year. Is we call it restorative flow, and working on our flexibility. And a lot of it, people talk about yoga and doing all these things. He goes all the way back to the old days, and they talk about some of the best receivers, did ballet and did some of those things. Mm-hmm. What is your thought and opinion about what we're doing with that part of our conditioning, and how does that help you as a student athlete?
Well, I like it a lot, actually, because I've had a couple hamstring injuries, as we all know, in the past seasons, and I feel like this is really making me get that much more stretched out and prepared for practice. Everything's just much more loose, and I feel like it gets you ready to go more.
Okay. And the last thing, Paul, before we go, this week, what does the Warrior offense have to do to show well at Crookston?
We just got to make our adjustments. They run a 4-down defense, so a couple different schematic changes in the blocking and the running and how things are going to open up. But I feel like if we prepare the same as we did the first 2 weeks, take one play at a time, we'll be just fine.
Well, Paul, thank you for being on the show. You're a great inspiration to many, many people watching the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck this weekend. In a minute, we're going to come back and talk on the defensive side with Coach Brian Curtin. And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show. Our second guest today is Coach Brian Curtin. Brian, thanks for being here today, buddy.
Hey, no problem.
I appreciate it. You know, Corey and I were talking about, looking at, the defense and the improvement where they have. What would you say is the kind of the biggest factor of the, the improvements that we've made on the defensive side of the ball that we've seen in the first two games?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is, we're able to mix up what we're doing, what we're calling. We can get pressure with four guys. Our defensive line, there's times we're rushing three and they're getting the quarterback. I think the best example I can think of, talked about this morning on the radio, but you came in a big third down, you asked, is it pressure or coverage? I just came back both because we're only bringing four and they got there in a hurry. So the play of those guys up front and that defensive line has been outstanding, and I think that just enables the guys on the back half. They tighten their coverage up a little bit, they take away the first look, the quarterback's getting hit.
We talk often about the experience up front and at that linebacker position, and of course, like a guy like Larry Mabayu, who's been with us for 5 years too. How does that leadership and those older kids now fit in with kind of the influx of some new talent as well?
I think it's one of the things our guys have done a nice job here is they take ownership of kind of our program and teach those young guys, how to be a warrior, how to do things, how to play the position. Those guys will answer as many questions in a practice as we will as coaches. And, I think I don't know if that's unique, but I think that's something we take a lot of pride in.
Going into the first two games, you got two different style of quarterbacks. You got a kid last week that kind of stood there and threw it around a little bit. The first week we had the Jacobson kid, who's one of the top running quarterbacks in the league. And now going into Crookston, how different do you have to prepare each week when you got those kind of guys at that position?
It changes a little bit what we want to call, what we want to be in. When you have those athletic quarterbacks, you always need to make sure you take care of the quarterback run. You got to be very disciplined in your pass rush. And at the same time, then sometimes you got to cover a little bit longer. If he can buy some time and things like that, you got to always talk about scramble rules and eye discipline, because they can extend plays.
On the defensive staff, we got you and David Braun and Zach Barton as our full-time guys. Talk about the working relationship that you guys have had. You've been with these guys the whole time, and even when they were GAs. But now, how does that work together on your side of the football?
It's been great. I think we all have, to a certain extent, the same mindset. We want the same things. We work together as a group. Don't really care who gets any credit and those kind of things. I think that's nice. It's really great to be a part of. You got guys that are passionate about what they do. They take a lot of pride in what they do. When things don't go right, I think we all look inward first to see what we can do as opposed to looking around at other groups and things like that. So it makes for a great working environment.
One of your other duties that you do with us, Brian, is work on our off-season conditioning program and working on all those things throughout the winter when nobody's looking. How important has that been the last couple of years now as you've been a part of that, growing our kids in the off-season?
It's huge. You got to be as big, fast, and strong as you can, and you got to try to prevent injury. I think we've looked at everything we do as a football program throughout the last couple of years because of all the injury issues we've had, and really trying to develop different ways to, somewhat get to the same results without the injury. We want to get as big and fast as we can. At the same time, we got to have athletes that we can put out on the field on Saturday. It doesn't really matter what they can do in the weight room if at the end of the day they're sitting in the training room.
Yeah. The other thing that we talk about often here is, talking about the Warrior way, our culture, and those kind of things. Brian, everybody knows that this is the place you've been since you've played. Your wife works at the university. Your kids are around. How important is that culture for you as you've brought up your family, through working with the Warriors?
It's been great. I grew up kind of the same way. Being around football teams. My dad was a coach, and those were the guys I looked up to as a kid and wanted to be like and emulate and those kind of things. And now, my son and daughter has the same thing. My daughter's really getting into volleyball and things like that, wants to go to the games. So I can't think of a better situation to bring your kids up in.
Friday afternoon when we're at home, we always see your boy out there running around, Patrick, and it's really fun. Here I am horsing around with him, and we're supposed to be focusing on our Friday work, but it's pretty loose out there on Fridays. And to be able to spend some time with your kid around our guys on the football field, what does that mean to you and your family?
He don't spend a lot of time with me when he's out there. He hits the field. I'm still in my office, and he's down in the field with the guys, and they're playing with him, and he's all about it right now. So it's fun for me to see that because I think you spend a lot of time away, and when you can see that, there's a benefit to what you're doing, but that at the end of the day, your family's not lacking because they're around so many great people. I guess probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, Brian, it's been fun having you. We're together. We've been together 19 years. We've been doing this, and surely had a lot of fun. So good luck to the Warriors and the defense this weekend, Brian, and have some fun on the trip.
We will. I'll sleep.
I wish I could. And in a minute, Corey and I are going to come back and finish up talking about that long trip up to Minnesota-Crookston.
All right, and welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show here on the Warrior Sports Network. Now for the fun part, to look back at all the highlights that we saw last week in the home win over Mary.
It's going to be awesome. Let's take a look. Well, Corey, as we take a look at this first one's a defensive highlight, and you can see the pressure on the quarterback up the middle. Did a great job inside with the sack, and you can see how excited guys were. Again, more defensive. Gage Ridnour, pressure inside by those inside linebackers, and the D-line flying around, especially Tyler Kubler. Jack Nelson, play action pass. He scrambles out a little bit. This is how athletic he is, but he throws the ball down the field about 40 yards. This is redshirt freshman Justin Bergeron with his first collegiate touchdown. Again, defensive guys, as we look at this, you see, again, got some inside pressure by Colin Corcoran. He throws it up, and a big interception by sixth-year senior Mitch Lunder. Again, more Jack Nelson as he looks over the defense. A play action again to Theo Burkett, and right down the pipe to senior Alex Jensen for his first touchdown of the year. Next, now we're looking at Paul Preston, a guy we talked about today, and everybody knows who he is now, but he is explosive, makes a big run there to get the momentum going back for the Warriors. Again, play action pass, Jack's got some time, escapes a little bit of pressure, and then just heaves it up here about 65 yards in the air.
That's a great pass.
To Josh Mikas, again, for one of those big explosive plays we're looking at offensively. Again, more Warrior defense, again, pressure up front, Dylan Till, Colin Corcoran, combining on that sack there for the Warriors. I think they had 4 on the day. Great looking down at the student section down there. There's just great environment for football. Jack Nelson hooking up with Josh Mikas in the back corner of the end zone. That's getting to be a pretty deadly combination, so absolutely. Really a lot of fun to watch. Again, Jack Nelson now looking for it, and all of a sudden we pull off the old Statue of Liberty play. The old Viking fans around here would like that. It's the old Fran Tarkington days, but a staple of the Warrior offense. Another big play, an interception by redshirt freshman Andrew Spencer. You can see him finishing in the end zone. What I like is look at the response of our student section down there.
It's great to see.
Cheer team down there, players down there, people going off. It's really a lot of fun. A great environment for Warrior football.
Yeah, a lot of highlights there, as you can see. When we come back, we'll switch gears and talk about this next week road trip here to Minnesota-Crookston. And welcome back to the Tom Sawyer Show here on the Warrior Sports Network. One final segment. Coach, second road trip of the year. Another long one, unfortunately, up to Crookston to play Minnesota-Crookston at 1 o'clock on Saturday. A long trip, but what do you have to do to get the victory?
Well, first of all, we got to survive that trip. It's fun, getting on the bus with the guys, and we bring 55 players and all of our coaches and managers and everybody else, and it's fun. You load 80 people up and go play a football game. It's just a lot of fun. But we need to play well. We need to play really fundamental. Our focus all week is trying to get perfect plays. Try to get 11 guys to do everything right on each play, and to see how many times we can do that. So that's our focus. It's not really about the opponent right now. It's about going out and playing as hard as you can, playing as fast as you can, and then get back on that bus and get home before it snows.
But you did mention the opponent, Crookston. You have won all 12 meetings against them in series history. What do they present for you that might be problematic as we head into the game?
Well, they got some really good offensive skill kids. They really do. The quarterback transferred in from Duluth, a big, tall kid, and he can throw the ball around pretty well. And they got some receivers that really can make some tough catches. So they got some scoring potential there. They put 31 up on Southwest last week, and so they have some of that ability. So we got to make sure we pay attention to that and try to keep Buchholz in check. But more importantly, I think that we need to really establish the ground game, control the clock offensively, and because I think that's the matchup that we really want to work on is our offense versus their defensive front seven, and see if we can improve on what we did last week. So
1 o'clock Saturday, kickoff up at Minnesota-Crookston. You can catch the game on 89.5 KQAL. And then right after that, next week, we'll be back at home against Minnesota-Duluth for a night game here at Maxwell Field at Warrior Stadium. Until next week with Coach Sawyer, I'm Cory Prudoehl, right here on the Tom Sawyer Show on the Warrior Sports Network.